So I'm just going to go over what we kind of figured out in class yesterday, which is going to push our curtain walls to the exterior of the largest column in your building. And this is just a question of constructability and layup. So I'm in a group here on the 11th floor, so this is just a repeated floor. This wouldn't necessarily be in the group, but this is a 4-foot by 4-foot concrete column, so I'm sort of at the lower end of the building, the higher end of the column here. And you can see that if we were to just go on the grid lines for these walls, it just overlaps that column. You could do something like this if you wanted to expose all of the columns, and you would just wrap this with an insulated panel or something like that for the interior. But what most of you are probably going to do, because you want some sort of consistent sort of window facade, is that you can align the interior of the wall to that to the exterior of the column. So it actually wraps it, right? So you're not necessarily on the grid lines. So you have to do that for all of the grids. So that's where the coordination comes into play. So just talk to your structural engineer and make sure that you're, changing this accordingly. Now, if this changes to like a 2x2 higher up, you still probably want that wall to continue up where it is. So you could show a step there with a little ledge. That's totally fine as well if you want it to seem more like a tier. But this could also just be a wall, that we would build out and you wouldn't necessarily see, because you might expose the column or you might not expose the column. But this isn't even that bad that you have that corner. We just want consistency from floor to floor, so all of your groups will probably be the same. So you could just keep the walls there. Now, for your curtain walls, let's say I want a window here that goes into sort of this area of the building, and it goes through the hallway or something like that. You could embed it. That's how I showed it in the last tutorial. If you don't have any windows here, if you have punched windows here, you could embed it, but you start to get like this little recession. There are ways around that by sort of editing the offset and stuff, but I think the best way that we can go ahead and manage this is to actually just leave a gap where you want the windows. So let's create similar here. Right, let's say we want our windows to be here. Now this is not flush, so I gotta align that first. And then I'm going to go ahead and go to architectural wall architectural, and we can make this a storefront curtain wall. Storefront is probably what you first want to try, and then we can edit this later. But this is just a default, I think it's a 3x6 panel or something like that. And we actually want to make sure that this is not embedding. Storefront will embed, but I would go ahead and just draw somewhere in front of this. And what that will allow us to do is then align it to this wall here. See if I can get one of these mullions. Don't know why it's taking so long here. Let's just move this from here to here. And now we could essentially have spandrel. This will apply to the area above as well. So the spandrel glass, or the curtain wall, will just extend in front of it. So if you did want an all glass facade, essentially what you have are sort of openings where there is actually window. And you probably will have to manipulate this later, but you could just take this back to the mullion, and that's essentially what would happen, that the insulation would sort of wrap here and go around. So we can create similar here, and again, just be consistent with your placement. So whether the window is on the inside or the outside, there would probably just be a little gap there. But this is truly spandrel glass now, right? Like there's a wall actually behind this. So this is taking a second for me, so I don't know if I'm going to finish this. But this would go here. So you could do something like that. And then give it a second to update all of the groups, and we can see what we're left with. So there's a couple things you have to remember then. One, talk to your structural engineer. Make sure your wall is actually being pushed out to the actual absolute edge of your building. Now you also have to coordinate with where the podium is. So maybe the podium has a 5x5 column, but then you go up to the residential levels and it's 4x4, for instance. You could technically hide it on the podium levels, like that column will always be on the interior. So your walls for your residential level could be based on the 4x4 rather than the 5x5. So just talk to each other, try a couple different levels out to see what's going on. And then always look at it in 3D, 2D, make sure everything is working out here. So you can see that this would be my facade. I have some overlapping glass there which I have to delete, but that's essentially what it would look like. And this is how you can deal with shear walls as well. So if you have like an 18-inch shear wall, like maybe that is what is going to push it in or out a little bit. So again, just consider where your columns are, and then that will be sort of the perimeter of your building that you have to consider your curtain.